The night was quiet in the Outer Rim Medical Station, but inside the halls, there was no peace. The smell of sharp metal and strange alien fluids filled the air. Machines hummed, alien voices barked orders. And in the middle of it all stood David, a human nurse. He was not important here. At least that was what the others said. Humans were called weak, fragile, and too emotional. David had spent years trying to prove them wrong. He worked longer hours, treated patients with care, and never complained. But still the alien doctors looked at him with cold eyes. That day something broke. An alien commander walked in, dragging a wounded soldier from a distant war. David rushed forward. He saw the soldier was losing blood fast. He shouted, "We need to close the wound now." But the alien chief cut him off. "Step back, human. You are not authorized." David argued, his heart racing. "If we wait, he will die. Let me help." But instead of listening, the chief raised his long arm and signaled the guards. The words fell like heavy stones. "You are dismissed from duty. Effective now, your weakness is a danger here." The laughter of other staff echoed in the room. David felt shame burn inside. He wanted to fight back, but his voice failed. He picked up his small bag of tools and walked away, his footsteps heavy on the cold floor. Outside the ward, he leaned against the wall, anger and sadness fighting in his chest. All his work, all his effort. And still he was seen as nothing. But then he heard a whisper, not from a person, but from the intercom. A broken voice said, "Sector 9. Containment breach." Unidentified creature injured. Curiosity pulled him. He walked down the empty corridor until he reached Sector 9. The air was colder here. Lights flickered. The doors were locked. But one was half broken. Inside he saw it, a huge dragon-like being, scales cracked, wings torn, blood dripping on the floor. The guards stood far away, their weapons pointed. None dared go closer. One alien muttered, "It is not our concern. Let it die. It is dangerous." Another laughed. "Who will heal a beast? Not worth the risk." David's heart pounded. He looked at the creature. Its chest rose weakly, its golden eyes half open. And for a moment, he saw not a monster, but a patient, a life slipping away. He stepped forward. The guard shouted, "Human, stop. You are not allowed." But David ignored them. He opened his bag, his hands trembling but steady enough to pull out bandages and medical gel. The dragon growled, a low thunder that shook the walls. But David spoke softly. "Easy, I will not hurt you. I only want to help." The guards laughed again. "Fool, it will kill you first." But David pressed on. He cleaned the wounds, covered them with his cloth, poured healing gel, every move careful. The dragon's eyes followed him, sharp and glowing, yet it did not strike. Its breathing slowed. Its chest rose with less struggle. David felt sweat on his face, but also a strange warmth in his chest. He whispered, "You will live, I promise. Ours." Past, the guards grew bored and left, but David stayed, stitching the torn wing, binding the scales, giving drops of water from his flask. When the night grew darker, he sat beside the dragon, exhausted, his hands stained with blood, his uniform torn. He leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. Then he heard it, a deep rumble, not of anger, but of calm. The dragon's chest moved steady. Its eyes slowly closed. It trusted him enough to sleep. David looked at the massive creature resting beside him. A smile touched his tired face. He had lost his duty, his title, his respect in the station, but in that moment, he knew he had found something greater. The next day would bring questions, anger, maybe even punishment, but none of that mattered now. Because tonight a human chose to save a dragon, and the galaxy would soon learn about it. Healing the dragon next morning came with a storm of voices. Whispers ran through the station like fire. Guards spoke of the human who dared touch the beast. Alien staff called him a fool. And yet no one could explain why the dragon was still alive. David sat beside the dragon, his eyes red from sleepless night, his hands still sore from work. The dragon's great chest rose and fell with more strength than before. Its scales gleamed faintly under the weak lights, but danger still hung in the air. The chief medic stormed into the hall, his cold eyes glaring at David. "What have you done? Human, you broke protocol. You interfered with a creature classified as hostile." His voice was sharp, cutting through the silence. David stood, his back straight, though his legs trembled. "I only did what no one else would. I saved a life," the alien scoffed. "You risked the station for a dying monster. Your foolishness will be reported to the council." But before David could answer, a sound rumbled behind him. The dragon's golden eye cracked open. It lifted its heavy head and released a slow growl. The guards raised their weapons, fear flashing in their eyes. David raised his hand, his voice calm. "Easy, it is weak. It will not harm us." He turned back to the dragon and spoke softly. "You are safe now, rest." To everyone's shock, the dragon lowered its head, its growl fading into silence. It listened to the human. That moment froze the hall. Aliens exchanged uneasy glances. None of them had seen such a creature respond to a human voice. The chief medic spat in anger. "This is a trick. It will kill us when it regains strength. Step away, human." But David refused. He placed his hand gently on the dragon's side. "If I leave it now, it will die. And I will not let that happen." The aliens mocked him. "Humans always act with heart, not mind. That is why you are weak," another voice hissed. "Your species has no place in our ranks." Still David worked. Ignoring them, he mixed herbs, sealed wounds with fire gel, adjusted the torn wing. He whispered words of comfort, though he did not know if the dragon understood. Time passed slowly. Every moment felt like a battle against doubt and fear. The dragon shifted once, its tail scraping the floor. The guards jumped back, weapons shaking. But then something unexpected happened. The dragon exhaled a warm breath, not fire, not anger, but a soft gust that brushed over David's face. He looked into its eye and saw not rage, but a strange light, something close to trust. David felt a lump in his throat. He whispered, "You hear me, don't you?" The dragon blinked once, slow and deliberate, almost like an answer. Gasps echoed through the hall. Aliens stared in disbelief. Whispers rose. "Impossible. It understands. No creature of that kind bows to humans." The chief medic's anger grew, his pride wounded. "Enough of this nonsense. I will call the council ship. They will take this beast away, and you will be punished, human." But David did not move. He pressed more bandages into place, his voice steady. "Then let them come. But until then, I will not stop." The hours dragged on, each one filled with tension. David's hands worked with precision, but his mind battled fear. He knew the council's wrath would be heavy. He knew his own life might end for disobedience, yet his heart refused to yield. When evening came, the dragon stirred again. It tried to lift its wing. Pain rippled through its body. David pressed his hand firmly. "No, stay still. You are not ready." The dragon froze at his command, as if his voice carried weight no one else's did. For the first time in his life, David felt a strange power, not the kind of force used in wars or weapons, but the power of being trusted, the power of saving what others abandoned. The guards could no longer laugh. Their faces turned pale. They saw something new falling before their eyes. The dragon let out a deep rumble, softer than before, like thunder rolling far away. It lowered its massive head closer to David, its golden eye fixed on him. David met its gaze, his voice low. "You will live, and no one will take that from you." The alien chief, furious, stormed out to contact the council, leaving behind a hall filled with fear and awe. Alone in that cold room, David rested his hand against the warm scales, feeling the heartbeat of a creature that once could have ended him, yet now chose silence. And in that silence, a bond was born. Outside, rumors spread faster than light across the station, across nearby ships, until whispers reached the stars. A story was forming, the story of a human who saved a dragon, and by the next day, the galaxy itself would hear it. Asterisk, the dragon awakens. Night was restless in the station. Even though the halls were quiet, the air was filled with whispers. Every alien who passed by spoke in hushed tones. The human is still alive. The beast listens to him. This is not natural. David sat by the dragon's side, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, but he did not dare leave. He knew if he stepped away even for a moment, someone might try to harm the creature. He leaned against the cold wall, clutching his small bag of tools. The dragon's breathing was stronger now, its chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Its scales had gained a faint glow under the dim light, and then, without warning, the golden eyes snapped open fully. David tensed, his body stiff. The sheer power in that gaze made his heart race. He whispered, "You are awake." The dragon shifted slowly, testing its injured wing. Its massive claws scraped against the floor. The guards nearby froze, weapons raised, but David stepped forward, placing himself between them and the creature. "Lower your guns," his voice firm. The guards hesitated. "It is dangerous," one hissed, but David's tone cut through the fear. "If you fire, you will kill what I worked to save. Trust me." Surprisingly, they obeyed, lowering their weapons with trembling hands. The dragon moved its head closer to David, so close he could feel the heat of its breath. Then a sound came, not a growl, not a roar, but a low hum, like words buried inside thunder. David's eyes widened. He leaned closer. "Are you trying to speak?" The dragon rumbled again, slow and broken, the sound forming into words that shocked every ear in the hall. "You saved me." Gasps erupted. The guards stepped back in fear. One whispered, "It speaks our tongue." Another said, "No dragon has spoken here in centuries." David swallowed hard, his throat dry, but he answered softly, "Yes, I saved you, because no one else would." The dragon's golden eyes locked onto his, and for the first time, it lowered its massive head until it touched the floor at his feet, a gesture of trust so deep it silenced the entire hall. The chief medic returned at that exact moment, followed by council envoys in silver robes, their faces twisted with disbelief at the sight. "Impossible," the chief barked. "This creature bows to no one, yet it bows to a human." The envoy stepped forward, his voice cold. "Human Nurse David, step away. This being belongs to the council now. It will be transferred immediately." David's chest tightened. He knew what they meant. They would chain the dragon, study it, maybe even kill it. He shook his head. "No, it will not survive your methods. It needs care, not chains." Envoy's eyes narrowed. "You dare refuse the council?" Before David could reply, the dragon lifted its head again, and this time its voice filled the hall with thunder. "I choose the human." The words echoed through the station, heavy and undeniable. The walls seemed to tremble. The envoys froze, their pride crushed by the beast's declaration. Anger surged in the chief medic's voice. "This is madness. A human cannot be chosen. They are weak, unworthy." But the dragon turned its gaze toward him, the golden light blazing. "Weak? No, heart strong." Every being in the hall felt the weight of those words, as if the galaxy itself had spoken. Rumors spread even faster now, across the stars. Ships relayed the story. Stations carried the message. By dawn the next day, entire sectors knew. A dragon had chosen a human. Alien leaders whispered in fear. If true, the balance of power shifts. Others mocked. A lie, a trick. But deep inside they knew the truth carried weight. David stood firm, his hands trembling, but his voice steady. "If you want to take it, you will go through me." The envoy stared at him, rage in his eyes, but he did not step forward. None dared defy the dragon's choice. The great creature rested its head once more beside David, its voice softer now. "You gave me life. Now I give you my bond." The hall fell silent. No one could speak. They all knew what this meant. The bond of a dragon was rare, sacred, unbreakable. David looked at the creature, his eyes wide. "Why me?" The dragon's answer was simple. "Because you did not see a weapon. You saw life." In that moment, David felt a weight on his shoulders, heavier than anything he had ever carried. He was no longer just a dismissed nurse. He had become the center of something much larger, and beyond the station, the galaxy waited, ready to respond. The galaxy reacts. The news traveled faster than light, across ships, stations, and entire sectors. The story of a human nurse and a dragon spread like a storm. No one knew the full truth, but the words carried power. A dragon chose a human. In the council chambers far above the core worlds, leaders of dozens of species gathered. Their voices clashed, some filled with rage, others with disbelief. One shouted, "If this is true, it threatens the order of our galaxy." Another hissed, "Humans are reckless. They cannot be trusted with such bonds." But a softer voice whispered, "Or perhaps we misjudged them." Back at the medical station, David walked the cold halls with guards following him. Whispers trailed behind. "That is him, the one the dragon trusts. How can a human hold such power?" He tried to keep calm, but inside his chest, fear gnawed. He knew the council had summoned him, and he knew they did not call him to praise. They called him to judge. The dragon, though still weak, stirred when David approached. Its golden eyes opened, and its voice rumbled low. "They will call you." David nodded slowly. "Yes, they already have." The dragon's gaze sharpened. "You are not alone, remember." Hours later, the council envoy arrived, their silver robes glowing under the sterile lights. The leader spoke with a sharp tone. "Human, you will come with us. The council demands your presence." Your actions disturbed the balance. The guards flanked him on both sides. Yet David did not resist. He turned once toward the dragon, and the creature lowered its head in a slow nod, a silent promise that whatever came next, it would not abandon him. The journey to the council hall was long, the ship cold and silent. The aliens around him looked at him with contempt, some with fear. No one spoke. When he finally stood in the great chamber, his breath caught. The hall stretched high, stars visible through the massive dome above. Rows upon rows of alien leaders glared down at him, the air thick with judgment. The head counselor, a towering figure with silver skin, raised his voice. "David of Earth, you are accused of breaking medical law, of touching what was forbidden, of endangering this station. What do you say?" David's throat tightened, but he forced his voice steady. "I saved a life, nothing more, nothing less. While others turned away, I acted." A roar of voices filled the chamber. Some shouted, "Reckless, defiance, he is dangerous." But a few voices rose in his defense. He showed compassion. He did what others would not. The head counselor slammed his staff, silencing the chamber. "And what of the dragon? Why does it bow to you?" "Answer, human." David hesitated. He wanted to say he did not know, but deep inside he felt the truth. He lifted his head. "Because I treated it as life, not as a weapon, not as a beast." Anger flared. A council member hissed, "Nonsense. No dragon bonds with humans." Another shouted, "This is a trick. He bewitched it." But then the chamber shook. A deep thunder rolled through. Gasps erupted. The great doors of the council burst open. And there it was, the dragon, its wings still scarred, its body still healing, but its power undeniable. Guards rushed forward, but none could stop it. The creature's golden eyes burned as it stepped into the hall. Its voice shook the pillars. You? Judge him. The council froze. Silence swallowed the hall. Asterisk the dragon lowered its massive head beside David. The sound of scales scraping stone filled the chamber. He saved me when none would. You call him weak, but his heart is stronger than your laws. The words rolled across the chamber like fire. Leaders who once mocked now stared in disbelief. Some leaned forward, whispering urgently. If a dragon defends him, can we deny it? Others hissed back. This breaks the order. Dragons must not choose humans. The head counselor's voice trembled, though he tried to hide it. Why, Great One, why choose him? The dragon's eyes glowed, its voice deep. Because in his hands I found life. In his voice I found truth. He saw me not as power, but as being. The chamber fell silent again. Every word sank heavy into the hearts of those who listened. David stood there, small before the council, smaller still beside the dragon. Yet for the first time in his life, he did not feel weak. He felt seen. But he also knew the battle was not over. For a while some leaders softened. Others hardened their hearts. One counselor snarled, "If we allow this, humanity gains a place it does not deserve. We cannot let one act change centuries of order." Another countered, "Perhaps centuries of order blinded us." The chamber erupted again, voices crashing like waves. The fate of David, the dragon, and perhaps all of humanity hanging by a thread. And as the arguments grew louder, David stood quietly, the dragon's golden eye watching him. Together they waited, knowing the next words spoken in this hall would decide more than their lives. They would decide the future of an entire species. Asterisk the Turning Point council chamber was a storm of voices. Every leader shouting, their words clashing in the air. Some called for punishment. Some demanded exile. Others whispered of change. The fate of one human and one dragon had become the fate of an entire species. David stood silent, the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing on him. He wanted to speak, but before he could, the dragon raised its head, its golden eyes burning like suns. Its voice roared across the hall. Enough! The sound shook the walls, silencing every voice. The air trembled under its power. No one dared speak. The dragon turned slowly, scanning the council, its gaze sharp. You call him weak, but he alone gave me life. You call him reckless, but he alone showed courage when you turned away. When you mocked, he chose to act. The head counselor's silver skin shimmered, his voice sharp. You are a great being, but you cannot speak for the galaxy. Rules exist for order. If we break them for one human, chaos will follow. The dragon's eyes narrowed. Order built on fear is not order. It is chains. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Leaders shifted uneasily. The words struck deep. David felt his heart race. He knew this was his moment. His voice shook, but he forced it out. I never wanted power. I never wanted to stand here. All I wanted was to heal, to save a life that others would not. If that is a crime, then judge me guilty. But know this compassion is not weakness. It is strength. The chamber fell quiet. Every word echoed like a bell. For a long moment, no one moved. Then one counselor stood, his voice soft. Perhaps we misjudged humans. Another rose. Perhaps they are not as fragile as we believed. But others hissed. Dangerous, too dangerous. The head counselor slammed his staff. We must decide, exile the human and erase this bond, or accept it and change the balance forever. A heavy silence followed, the air thick with tension. The dragon lowered its massive head close to David, its voice a low thunder only he could hear. Whatever they choose, I will not leave you. David swallowed hard, his eyes stinging, and I will not leave you either. The counselors began to cast their votes, light flaring above their seats. Red for exile, blue for acceptance. The colors flashed across the hall. Hearts pounded as the tally grew. For a time it seemed exile would win. The reds outnumbered the blues. Whispers of doom spread. But then, slowly, more lights turned blue. Leaders swayed by the dragon's words. Swayed by David's courage. Swayed by something they could not fully explain. When the final light dimmed, the hall held its breath. The head counselor looked at the tally, his voice heavy. By narrow decision, the bond stands, the human is. Not exiled humanity. Will be recognized? A wave of shock rolled through the chamber. Some shouted in anger. Others bowed their heads in respect. History had shifted in a single moment. The dragon let out a deep rumble, not of threat, but of triumph. Then let it be known, dragons stand with humans. David's knees almost gave way, relief and fear mixing in his chest. He whispered to himself, "We did it." But he knew this was only the beginning. He had not just saved a life. He had opened a door for his entire species. A door that could lead to respect or to even greater conflict. As the council adjourned, alien leaders filed out. Some glaring, some thoughtful, some silent, but all changed. None could return to the old view of humans as weak and unworthy. Outside the hall, a crowd waited. Thousands of eyes watched as David stepped forward with the dragon at his side. Whispers spread, the human who healed a dragon. The bond that defied the council. David looked at them, his hands trembling, but he did not lower his head. He walked forward, every step heavy but strong, the dragon's shadow falling over him like a shield. For the first time, the galaxy saw humanity not as fragile, but as something different, something dangerous not because of strength, but because of heart, and deep inside, David knew the truth. One act of kindness had rewritten their place among the stars. The story would be told again and again. A human nurse dismissed from duty, who chose to save a dragon, and in doing so, changed the galaxy forever. Asterisk.